Well, hello. Here we are, our winter weather outlook. I feel like we've been talking about this for a week now. I'm meteorologist Autumn Lewandowski. Josh Nichols is joined with me. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody.
Yeah, so when you start coming into the stream, tell us where you are and what you want to know about this winter season. Hopefully, we can give you some answers on it. But I think maybe what we'll do, Josh, is we'll kind of run through what our weather outlook is, what Aaron kind of recap or did this morning. I recapped this afternoon. And of course, the entire article that you were able to put up with that is online. So hopefully we can get to some really fun topics. And if anything pops up that you guys want to know about, just send it in the comments for us. Okay. So we're going to bring in our weather graphics and talk a little bit about the different things that are going to be in play for our winter season. You may hear La Nina a lot, El Nino as well, but La Nina this year, it's returning, and it's going to create an active weather pattern for us in Western New York. We're also going to expect somewhat above normal snow totals for the airport. This is going to be different for the southern tier and south and east of Buffalo within lake effect. And then our temperatures are going to be slightly above normal. Again, we're going to get those cold pushes and those lake effect systems are going to come in, but then there's also going to be temperatures that go above normal. So there are a couple different things that we look at on a global scale that cause us to kind of have different winter patterns here in Western New York. One being this is La Nina. And what typically happens, we get the trade winds from east to west, and in a normal phase, it just pushes that warm air over or the warm surface temperatures over, no biggie. In La Nina, the trade winds are stronger, and a cool pool ends up on the eastern Pacific and along our Pacific coast. What that does here in Western New York is creates those active storm patterns. I figured I would bring Josh in to talk about this
Oh,
as well, because with La Nina, this is a weak La Nina. So we
right.
kind of get reminiscent of what this pattern is, but then it kind of gets a little lackadaisical too.
Yeah, this year it looks like it's going to be a weak La Nina, which tends to shift the overall jet stream that you see there a little further off to the north, pretty much right over the Great Lakes and the Northeast. And what it allows for is frequent clipper systems, better chances for lake effect snow, and specifically early on in the season. We've already passed the average date for the first trace of snow in Buffalo, so 'tis the season pretty much at this point. At this point, it's still an evolving situation, but it is a key ingredient to the winter forecast.
Yeah, so Katie's saying, when is this supposed to happen? Well,
Yeah.
it pretty much goes into play once we get into our November, December. Usually by the end of the winter season, things kind of tend to trail off a little bit. But speaking of getting those clipper systems that come through, that will tend to, what I've seen kind of historically, especially living here in Western New York my whole life, you get these systems that bring in the cold air, you get the snow, you get that lake effect push, and then you get a warm up behind it. And then it kind of melts things off, and you don't get a good snowpack for that first half of the season. So that might tend to happen. However, with a weaker track, maybe we don't get as much or as dramatic of the cold and warm coming through Western New York.
Yeah, and it does appear La Ninas that are weak, based on some of the research that we did, tend to allow for this kind of pattern of frequent clippers and lake effect to happen earlier
Right.
versus later. So, of course, in November, the potency of the Arctic air is usually not that great.
Yeah.
Again, all you need is a certain threshold temperature to be achieved at about 5,000 feet in the atmosphere. Drag that cold air across the lakes, which, by the way, the lakes are still pretty warm at this point. do that. You get that big temperature contrast, you get the lake effect, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But we're also looking here, I believe,
Mhm.
at the Siberian snow cover. This is kind of an interesting uh, metric for trying to figure out what's going to happen with some of these colder air masses. Tends to be, and this is an indicator that a lot of meteorologists and climatologists have been looking at over the last, I'd say, couple decades, is that when you have that more expansive snow cover over Siberia, you have basically what is a lot of reflection of that sunlight back into outer space. So that reflectivity allows for uh, for it to get a little bit colder. And it tends to be that when you have, an earlier snowpack in Siberia, that the potency of the Arctic air tends to be a little bit greater.
And speaking of that, the polar vortex. This came out, I'd say, oh gosh, what was it? Maybe 7, 10 years ago. The big term was the polar vortex, and nobody really was paying attention to that until we had a really big push of cold air, and everyone blamed that polar vortex. So,
Well, it was
speaking of it,
2015. I think it was 2015, right? Was it?
2015, so 10
I
years
think
ago,
so.
there we go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so this is this large area of cold air aloft, and it's typically right above the North Pole. And as Josh just mentioned, you have that Siberian cold, that snowpack that's allowing it to be likely even colder, that stronger, colder air that we have in place. And in a normal situation, that jet stream is strong. It holds everything up there. But another kind of worldwide, I should say global scale, negatively impacting the North Atlantic oscillation, I should say the negative North Atlantic oscillation, can cause this. And the jet stream gets weaker and allows some of those lobes of cold air to get pushed down.
Yeah, and what the North Atlantic Oscillation is, just so people kind of have a little bit of a background, is
Right.
when we look at global circulations, there tends to be a semi-permanent area of low pressure up towards um, Iceland, and then you have an area of high pressure over the Azores, over the Atlantic, and so the metric, whether the NAO, the North Atlantic Oscillation, is either negative or positive, is based on the pressure difference between those two features. And when, as Autumn was just indicating, when the NAO is negative, the jet stream weakens and allows for that semi-permanent low, or the polar vortex, to slip further south. That means more Arctic air.
Exactly. We tend to listen more to the NAO in the winter months because it really impacts whether that jet stream weakens. A lot of times in this, even this the summertime, we're talking about the Bermuda High or the Omega Block or something like that. So in the wintertime, this is what we're kind of looking at that causes that colder air to get pushed down. So we combine that with the weak La Nina, and we get a active weather pattern. And again, tends to be earlier in the season that we will continue to get these storm systems that move on through. So
Yeah.
with all of that combined, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah, no, 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 no. It's okay. Peter just chimed in and said hello to us, and says this morning Aaron said something that AI has made progress in making predictions. What AI is used and how effective is the tool? I think that's a great question, because there are different versions now of some of the models that we tend to rely on. Like you've probably heard us all talk about the European model or the GFS model. Well, they're now injecting AI into those models and coming up with different versions, and it's really remarkable. I think in terms of accuracy, uh, it's definitely a leap ahead to maybe some better predictions. Some of these models that they go out several months. I saw one; it was like an 840-hour forecast. I mean,
Oh, wow.
that's
See, I
that's
haven't seen that.
That sounds like something out of science fiction, but it's not
Yeah.
now. So it'll be interesting to see as we inject AI into these models, you know, where we go.
Yeah, and he was asking what tool is used. I mean, there's a bunch of different ones. Google is one of a major one that has come out with it's like Google predictions essentially now they have. So you know, the more AI comes out with all different, I mean, I'm not even touching even remotely what AI can do just with everyday life. So I can't imagine how things are going to progress with weather.
For sure.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I'm on the right page there. Okay, so that leads us to what our winter outlook is going to be. So normally we get days, you'll notice average days below or at 32 degrees. Typically we're at 51. We're forecasting 45. So that's going to lead to us being a little above average for the winter season. The snowfall normally at the Buffalo Airport is 95 inches. We're forecasting to be just above that, close to 100 at the Buffalo Airport. And again, southern tier, southeast of Buffalo with lake effect events are going to be much higher than that. They always are. And we're forecasting anywhere from 11 to 13 lake effect events when on average, we have about 10 lake effect events here in Western New York.
And of course, it's fun to play the game of averages, right? Like, if the winter comes on strong and cold and then all of a sudden lets up a little bit and then, then comes roaring back, then, what, is being discussed as average, is one of my mentors used to say, average is just a point between two extremes. So
Right.
lots of ups and downs could mean near average or slightly above average temperatures, but doesn't mean it's not going to get cold. Doesn't, as I said in the article, there'll be plenty of shivering and shoveling, I'm sure.
Yeah, that will be the case. I mean, we get a good cold push with the lake obviously wide open at the beginning of the season. That's usually where we get our good few of those feet type of situations with lake effect snow. And, and then if we stay cold for a bit, everything kind of gets shut off because the cold air is now creating the ice and, that type of thing. But with this year, we're likely going to keep Lake Erie not at 100% ice cover too. So it's all something to keep an eye on as we progress through the winter months.
For sure. And of course, we'll be watching it every step of the way. I just hope that we don't get trapped again autumn like we did with the Christmas blizzard there in 22.
There's always a couple of times through the years that we stay in hotels here in downtown Buffalo because we know traveling back and forth to home isn't going to be advisable. So I mean, we do all that stuff too. We get trapped with everybody else.
That's right.
But we just want to, make sure that we give everyone the information that they need. And I did want to speak to Karen because I saw her say, "Is it going to rain all night?" Off and on, some heavy rain. It'll be even breezier and windier. I'll mention that for Karen. And if we're good, we're gonna hop off here. I gotta get ready for the 7 p.m. newscast. Josh, thanks for joining me and talking about what our
Here.
winter season's gonna be like. And everybody stay safe, happy Halloween, and of course, go Bills.